Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing well on a Friday afternoon. First, I want to say thank you, parents and family members, for joining our conversation around sorority and fraternity life. My name is Beth Doors, and I serve as the Associate Director for Campus Life. A little bit more about myself. I have been a member of Chi Omega fraternity for the past 20 years, and during this time, I've been able to serve in a variety of different capacities, such as a chapter advisor, house director, and experience managing a sorority and fraternity life community at my previous institution. Additionally, my husband is a member of Delta Sigma Phi fraternity for the past 27 years, so dinner table conversations may look a little bit different than other folks' conversation as a result to my job and his experience. We both really have had a positive experience with sorority and fraternity life. So before we begin, I wanted to see if folks that are in the room, parents or family members that are joining us, are any of you affiliated with a sorority or fraternity? If so, go ahead and put your affiliation in the chat box so we can kind of learn more about who might be here and present with us. So just checking, you can certainly go into that chat box if we have any folks that are affiliated here. Great, Amy. Thank you. Delta, Delta, Delta. Oh, great. We have some other folks. Alpha Chi Omega. Wonderful. I worked with your chapter previously. Delta Gamma. Great. That's great, Susan. We got a lot of folks here. This is so great. Wonderful. Well, thank you guys for sharing so much. And for those that are not affiliated with a chapter, thank you just so much for being interested in learning more about what this lifetime commitment is here at WashU and overarching within sorority and fraternity life. So during the conversation today, we're going to provide you with some feedback around campus life, how fraternity and sorority life community shows up at WashU. And as you are talking with your students, some topics we encourage you to have as they're exploring their choice to participate. Over the course of the next hour, should you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat feature below, and we'll be responding in real time, either through the chat or my colleague Hannah Johnson here, which will probably be answering questions too. She works in sorority and fraternity life with me. Will be pausing me to answer those questions live. In addition, should you have any problems seeing the slide deck, I'm going to go ahead and put the slide deck in the Zoom chat itself so that, I don't know if you're like me, but technology can sometimes be a little clunky and I won't be able to see what I need to see. So there you go. I'm going to go ahead and put that here so you can go along with another website for you to review. So again, we look forward to talking to you, but I don't know if you're like me, but I would rather hear from folks that are in the community in real time regarding their experiences. So over the course of the conversation, our community partners listed on the slide will be sharing more about themselves, along with answers to some of the questions around their experience. And so I wanted to make sure that you knew that we have a really great folks leading the conversation and talking about their experiences. So let's talk a little bit more about who we are. So who is Campus Life? We are, within Campus Life, our primary goal is to ensure that our students are making communities for which they can create impact with. With over 400 student groups across 14 different categories, our students are becoming better people, building better communities, and what we do that, how we do that is in 3 different ways. We do that within programming, advising, and resources. So whether that is our Washington University group organizer that lists more about our student groups, and I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well, just in case you want to learn more about all of our community, including our sorority and fraternity life, to supporting the 240 student group chapter advisors, and some of which you're going to be hearing from Matt and Shantae about their experiences, to hosting programs such as Tuesday Tea each Tuesday at 3 here in the Danforth University to celebrate a student's experience. So there's a lot of different ways that we show up and are able to support others. So how does this come to light? I want to welcome Rachel to the conversation to share her story on how Campus Life has been able to support her through her first and her second term as chapter president for her sorority. So Rachel, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, I would love to. So my name is Rachel, and like Beth said, I am currently serving as the president of the Alpha Epsilon Phi chapter on campus here. It's the Psi chapter. I also had the honor of previously serving as president for the 2019 calendar year, and I am finishing out my second term as president, so that'll be finishing up at the end of this semester, which is exciting but also sad. I have worked a lot with campus life. Obviously, I've worked in the closest contact with our Sorority and Fraternity Life office and the staff members there. So I work a lot with Beth and Hannah. I work a lot with the other student leaders, my chapter advisors, advisors from my national office. But I really have valued the opportunity to work with them. And I always tell people that after I served my first term, as a joke, I was like, I would honestly do it again if I could. And it was funny because it takes a lot of time and it's a lot of effort. And here I am actually doing it again, which isn't particularly common. But definitely the most valuable experience I've had. I'm a senior, and it's been 4 years of experiences on this campus, and by far the most valuable one I've had was working with the staff in campus life and gaining experience as a leader, as a member of a chapter, as kind of an in-between when I served on committees in my chapter, but I wasn't yet on the executive board. Just getting the chance to work with adults and grown-ups that do this for a living, but also with other student leaders that share the same passions as me. And gaining that experience, I think, has prepared me so well for moving past the college experience, which everybody keeps telling me is something that I need to start thinking about since it's my last year here. And I feel so much better prepared having that experience and being able to move through the stages of life that I have with the support of the campus life staff. There's been a lot of change in the whole 4 years that I've been here, and kind of every step of the way I've felt that support. My chapter had, I like to tell this story because it's quick, but it's also a great example. Last year, or about a year and a half ago at this point, we had paid a security company that provided security at one of our events, and we had sent them a check like we were supposed to, thought it was all done. And I think it was like 36 hours before the next event that we were having months later, we got an email from them saying, you never paid us, so we're not providing security for your event. Therefore, based on the rules from campus life, that event was not going to happen. And I actually got a call from the associate director at the time. He called me on my cell phone, said, we know what's going on. Do not worry about this. We know that you guys sent the check. This is not on your chapter. Let us help you. And with him and Hannah and a couple of other people, we were able to figure all of that mishugas, if you will, out. And that, I think, is just a great example of how I came into college and I barely even knew how to write a check. So gaining that experience, but also, what do you do in that type of situation where your professional experience is kind of at risk? You don't want to have this reputation for not getting something done, things like that. And I've just had a really great experience with all of them so far.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you for that story. Rachel talked a little bit about folks in campus life. So as your student is engaging in our sorority and fraternity life community or other co-curricular communities, as Rachel was talking about, we have a variety of folks that they are, or you as parents are able to seek guidance and process questions and share resources with. So this is a list of folks that you can certainly reach out to in addition to folks on this conversation. So let's kind of get into that conversation about what sorority and fraternity life is. Jana, I love your question about, tell me a little bit about the history, because we're going to talk briefly about that. But fraternities and sororities have contributed to the fabric of our student experience at WashU since 1874, which, fun fact, because I'm a fun fact kind of person, that was 98 years after the first fraternal society ever. And so when we think about that, we have a very rich historical perspective as it relates to our sorority and fraternity life community. And our first umbrella council was in 1911, and with our sororities, our introduction to our sororities was in 1916. So again, as you can see, we have that long, rich history at WashU, developing leaders and impacting our community and beyond. To gain better perspective on what type of impact we are talking about, I would love to invite Matt to the conversation. Not that he was here in 1916, but he is a seasoned alum here. He not only graduated, but he continues to partner with our students today. So Matt, how have you seen your experience unfold in your professional career? And what skills did you gain as a result of the experience? And certainly Jana had a great conversation in the chat about what is it like before when I was there till now. So you feel free to gain that perspective as well.
Yeah, so for a real quick introduction, again, my name is Matt Eschelbrenner. I graduated from the Olin School of Business in 2005. The two biggest skills that I learned at WashU were really how to prioritize my time and effectively multitask. So WashU can be a very demanding institution, but your student is here because they love a challenge and really thrive when they begin to push themselves. So as you progress through WashU, you will be forced to prioritize at certain points. It's honestly inevitable. You know, during finals week, do you study that last hour for ancient medieval history or oceanography? And developing the ability to analyze these types of situations critically still benefits me today. And then the complementary task to prioritization is multitasking. And honestly, like, where do you start with that? So as a professional and a parent of two young children, multitasking is second nature to me these days. You know, managing a full course load while becoming involved in many different student groups at WashU is really where I started to understand the importance of this trait. And in my experience, multitasking is one of the biggest differentiators of a high-performing individual in the workplace. So those are the two that I would pick.
Thank you, Matt. And yes, I have two younger ones as well. So multitasking was definitely a skill that my sorority life experience did prepare me for as I transitioned to this phase of my life. Great, thank you so much. And within sorority and fraternity life history, we have seen many changes. Most recently, with the unrest nationally this summer, it created a tipping point for our own community to reflect on the relevancy here at WashU. And this really did include challenging ourselves to understand the systematic oppression that is a part of our history. And this reflection included the choice for some of our members to either deactivate from their chapters, or for those 750 members remaining, which is about 15% of our undergraduate community, to take on that work of reform in order to create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. And so when we think about those chapters that are still here, that remain in our community, we have 25 chapters that fall under 4 unique umbrellas. And as a note, our National Panhellenic Council, which is our historically African American chapters, offers some of our students a citywide chapter experience. So I'm going to bring to the conversation Shantae, who is a chapter advisor and a member of a citywide chapter. Can you, Shantae, talk about what that experience looks like and how you support your members through a citywide approach?
Sure. Hi, I'm Shantae Redden. I am a program coordinator here at the Olin Business School. And as Beth said, I am the advisor for Alpha Omega's citywide chapter of Delta Sigma Theta. And what a citywide experience looks like, typically on a campus, a sorority chapter cannot be supported because there's a few number of African American, young ladies on the campus. So what we do is combine our efforts and bring all of the young ladies from all the campuses on our charter into one chapter. So here in St. Louis, we have 9 schools on our charter. Washington University is one of them. We currently have 48 girls in our chapter, and they are from 7 of the schools on the charter. And so what we do, we just combine our efforts, bring them together. They do community service together. It is a fantastic experience in bringing young women from different campuses, different experiences together to form a sisterhood. And as Beth said, I went to the University of Missouri in Columbia. I came from a Citywide chapter, and it was just an awesome experience to get to know girls from all over the Columbia, Missouri area. And we support them. We work closely with the university to make sure that we are following policies and the rules of the university. We try to support the girls, make sure that they are actively involved in community service, that they are, being developed into leaders. And it has just been an amazing experience working with the Campus Life staff.
Thank you so much, Shantae, for talking a little bit more about our citywide chapters, and a special note for our National Association for Latino Fraternal Organization and our National Panhellenic Council. This is open for any person who is interested in joining these particular chapters, along with our Women's Panhellenic and Interfraternity Council. So that is something that I want to have as a special note as we're talking about being informed, is to learn about all of our 25 chapters and all of the great rich history that we have. So this slide really highlights those chapters that are currently on our campus. Each chapter offers their own unique set of values, how they serve our community. So Shantae talked a little bit about how Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated community engages with our community, and she'll talk a little bit later about that. But also how we build traditions within our community. So I see some alums, whether it's here or from other colleges, and my conversations with my husband is always about what his traditions were 7 years prior to me being affiliated, and what are the traditions of today. And it's what's unique about our community is that it evolves. So some remain the same, where others evolve to the sense of time. So I'm going to bring Matt to the conversation as the president of Tau Kappa Epsilon, and he's also a member of our Interfraternity Council. Can you share with us some traditions that exist within our sorority and fraternity life community, or more specifically within our IFC chapters? Either way is fine.
Of course. So within Tau Kappa Epsilon, across our 100-year history, we've had plenty of traditions. One of them that still persists today is Teak Week, which is our philanthropy week that happens every year in February, where we have programming every day in support of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. But across the IFC as a whole, there's also plenty of traditions, including Meet the Greeks, which is a publicity event hosted every year at the Danforth University Center that allows incoming first years to be exposed to the entire IFC community prior to the spring recruitment.
Thank you so much, Matthew. So here at WashU, our goal is to learn every student by name and story. So this allows me to have the opportunity to learn more about experiences folks within sorority and fraternity life, or as they have gone in to pursue their careers, being able to talk about what their experience is like and how they apply it to their current role, such as Shantae and Matt. And Matt, you heard here earlier, was talking about that experience. So it's so great to hear traditions that evolved through the season of time. This slide really highlights to you what our community is present day and what our community is not. So our community really focuses on that civic engagement, which you were able to hear that earlier. It's about that networking, and it's about building that relationship and that mentoring that I think is a part of that co-curricular experience. Going into the classes, getting the degrees are important, but also in the same breath, having that mentor and guide you into some of those conversations are equally important. And it's about the value-based approach to leading others. So unfortunately, Jalen was not able to come here, who is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, but we have Rebecca, who is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She just recently graduated and was on the NPHC Council leadership team. So I'm going to have Rebecca talk about how she's been able to continue her work post-graduation. So how do you continue to be a part of your sorority and the experiences as you transition outside of our community?
Hi, Beth. Hi, everyone. First, let me introduce myself again. My name is Rebecca Bowman. I served as the 2019-2020 president of the National Panhellenic Council. I was initiated through the Beta Delta chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in fall 2017. So I'm coming up on my 3rd year anniversary. I'm super excited about that. And a way that Alpha Kappa Alpha and NPHC chapters in general are able to promote lifelong active membership is by having transitions between undergraduate chapters and graduate chapters. We do have the option for undergraduate students, if they do not want to transition straight into a graduate chapter, they can choose general membership, which is still having the privileges and responsibilities of being a member without being affiliated with a particular chapter, which may be appealing to some in this virtual setting with everything going on. We're not able to visit different graduate chapters. So as of right now, I will be going into a general membership, but I still keep in touch with newsletters. I still try to participate in service activities. Martin Luther King Day of Service is coming up in January, so I plan on participating in some way, shape, or form in my respective city, and also just keeping in touch with my undergraduate members, making sure that they are still following protocol. What questions do they have? How can they best serve their undergraduate communities in this space? Keeping up with my graduate advisors, seeing how they're doing. It's been an interesting transition because it's not what I planned. I did plan on transitioning into a graduate chapter, but with everything going on, I'm just rethinking how I can still serve. And that's the whole idea of what it means to be a part of a Greek organization. It doesn't just stop after graduation. You're still thinking about ways to serve your organization, serve your community, and serve those around you. So.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And as you can hear with Metu, with Rachel, with our newly graduate Rebecca, and our seasoned professionals like Shantae, myself, and Matt, you know, it is about that length of time that we are a part of this community. So folks like Meredith and Diane and Jennifer, I see, and Seth, you know, it's about how we translate that into the long-term experience and community and giving back. And so, you know, our sorority and fraternity life is about really cultivating that relationship, giving impact, and building beyond the 4-year experience that they have here at WashU. So what I hope you have been hearing about our experience is that there's really a positive correlation, both short-term and long-term. A study was done a couple of years ago about the positive impact of our community, which you can see here demonstrated with this slide about being involved with that sense of values, that confidence, right? So when Rachel is going into her 2nd term, she's able to really give back to her community in a little bit of a different way. And I'm going to have Rachel actually come back here and talk about what she's been able to see about some of the positive effects that she's seen with members, whether it's our newly initiated members to those that are a little bit more seasoned. So what does that look like? How have you seen that positive shape and development of your members since you have been involved?
Yeah, so that's been honestly one of the things that I've cared about the most in all the time that I've spent serving as a member of our executive board, and specifically last year. So after let me see if I can get my dates right, the 2019 recruitment cycle. So that was when I was a sophomore. So I was coming from the active side of recruitment. And that was the beginning of my 1st term as president. Something that my exec was really dedicated to is really making the new pledge class feel as included and passionate about this community as we all did. And through lots of programming and education and just all sorts of things, we really were able to get that passion developed. And I think it absolutely carried down to the recruitment following that. So that would have been our most recent recruitment. And it's been really rewarding to see, you know, my hard work pay off, but also other people's hard work pay off, and to see that passion continue kind of down the generations, if you will. But I also have seen people's interests develop as a result of their experience in fraternity and sorority life for things that are less related to that realm. So for example, I also serve on the executive board for Dance Marathon, which I'm sure a lot of you know what that is, but for those who don't, it's normally in non-COVID times a big day-long dancing event, and all of our proceeds from the entire year of fundraising go to the Children's Miracle Network hospitals in this area for the St. Louis region. And I actually found out about Dance Marathon through AFI. And I found like a whole other community of people that I've been able to get close with and interact with and find a new passion because of my experience in SFL. And that's been something that I've been really grateful, and I know a lot of people have shared similar experiences to that.
Thank you so much, Rachel. So as a parent tip for you, really asking your student about why are they interested in sorority and fraternity life? As you can hear, being a part of our community goes beyond just our community, and it is a part of the other student groups we have here on campus, but it's also about our St. Louis connection and how we're giving back to our city as well. And so that's something to think about as you're talking with your student, whether you're a parent or family member. We know why we're here, right? At WashU, academic. So academics are so important. It's the foundation of WashU, which translates the foundation of sorority and fraternity life. And so this is some information about our GPA, our average GPA in terms of our different councils. And so I have a question for both Matthew and Rebecca. Can you talk a little bit about how your chapter supports your members academically to persist, especially really focusing on that new member experience, as we have some parents and family members that might be interested in their student going through spring recruitment. This might be able to help them understand how we focus on our academics. So Matthew, if you can go first, and then Rebecca, share kind of how we approach our support academically with our students.
Sure. So Zyteek really prioritizes academic excellence, especially during the new member education process. So during that process, we hold weekly study halls for our new members that incorporate actives too, to kind of foster this academic climate within our chapter. And we see that prioritization carry out throughout the entire time in which you are an undergrad at WashU. TEAK maintains an average of 3.61 GPA, and approximately 70% of our chapter members make the dean's list of their respective college every semester.
So,
thank you, Matthew. Oh yeah, thanks, Rebecca.
I just wanted you to repeat your question again so I can make sure I formulate my answer.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Rebecca. So this is really looking at how we support our members, current members, and our new members going through either recruitment or intake. How do you help them support them in their academic success?
Absolutely. So one of the main tenets of National Panhellenic Council organizations is scholarship. And what that means is that not only do you have a certain GPA requirement to become a member of said organization, but you have to maintain said GPA requirement to continue to have active membership. And the way we kind of support our initiates and our members is we do have study halls during our recruitment process as well, and we also host events where we have different, like studying for midterms, studying for finals, and just making sure that we always keep academics at the forefront. So if your GPA does fall beyond a certain number, you will go on what's called withdrawal of privileges, and that means until your GPA is back up to standards, you will not be able to participate as an active member. And that's not to be punitive, but it's just to, like I said, encourage that tenet of scholarship to make sure that we are focused on our grades and not just on the social aspects of being in a sorority or fraternity.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And thank you so much, Matt, too, as well. So another point we wanted to share with you as you're having conversations with your students about sorority and fraternity life is that values are important to our community. And you've heard some of the values speak up in terms of the service of being really growing our leadership skills. And so we wanted to talk a little bit more about the values and share our values that are important to our sorority and fraternity life community here at WashU. And it's really about that congruency of our time, talent, and treasure. And as we are really building our community here and beyond, thinking about how we hold ourselves accountable. So starting this spring, this year, so spring 2021, the Sorority and Fraternity Life will be going through an accreditation program that highlights how each chapter is carrying out our sorority and fraternity values. This helps you and your student learn a little bit more about our chapter, as well as it helps us as advisors, so Matt and Shantae and myself, be able to mobilize support for the chapter so that as we're thinking about well-being or social justice or personal growth, that we can speak the same language, and we can also support each member and each chapter and overarching our sorority and fraternity life community be successful. In addition, our national chapters hold our students accountable to their respective chapter standards, minding you that 25 chapters have really unique experiences, and we have some similarities, but that is something that is unique. So Shantae, with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, can you talk briefly about how your national organization supports your role as a chapter advisor and your member roles in making that impact? We might have lost Shantae.
She's here.
I'm sorry.
Shantae, are you still with us?
Muted.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, it's the technology. Don't you just love it when you're like, I'm talking and then it's like, boop, the
Yes.
mute. I forgot that.
Yes, I am sorry. I'm sorry. But yeah, on the national level, our national headquarters supports advisors by getting us extensive training to be advisors. And we're also like, and it's a requirement, you have to go through the training, but we also are giving a council of people to assist us with the advising process. And to support our chapter members, we have what is called a collegiate connection, which is communications that are directly driven to the collegiates. And it kind of gives them direction on what they should be focusing on. So right now, under our 5-point program, an election's coming up, everybody knows. So we're really focused on political awareness and involvement. So we're encouraging our undergraduates to sponsor voter registration or voter education programs, screenings of a movie about combating voter suppression, and to focus on the Affordable Health Care Act. So we are busy, and we're trying to keep our undergraduates busy.
Thank you so much, Shantae. So, you know, each of the 25 chapters have a chapter advisor. So typically it's a graduate of that chapter to be able to help guide and give perspective. For those that may have a chapter facility or a suite style, there might be somebody like Matt, who's the House Corps president or advisor, to help guide that community space. So another point we wanted to recommend you talking with your students about was, what do they value? What are they interested in? Is there a nonprofit that they're really truly passionate about? That might align with one of our chapters here on campus. I was just talking with a graduate fellow about her experience and her interest in the Alzheimer's Association, and that is what drew her to her sorority, was because of that experience. And so that is a really great connection. Thank you, Shantae. About voting, also, please make sure to vote, about how we give back to our community. So now we're going to talk about what is that process to join, whether it goes through the recruitment or the intake process. So as you are partnering with your student in making this decision, we wanted to share with you the university's requirements. Understanding we are in a pandemic time, we acknowledge that our spring and recruitment intake process has not been finalized. We'll talk loosely about it later, but that is still in real time in what we are focusing on. However, again, there's a couple of things we encourage you to talk to your student about. And that's really thinking about some of the conversations about doing your research, attending the information sessions that will be coming here in the weeks/months ahead, asking the questions, focusing on our academics. But Matt, in your role with serving as the House Corps president, along with your experience in engaging with our members, are there other pieces of advice that you would encourage our parents to have when they're talking with their students about being a part of our fraternal community?
Yeah, so at an academic first institution like WashU, one of the main points of differentiation between our school and a larger public university is that we have deferred rush, which it sounds like we'll talk a little bit more about here in just a minute, but we wait until the second semester of a student's career before rush begins. So my advice to parents is that you simply check in with your son or daughter to make sure they believe they can handle yet another activity on their plate. Rushing and pledging at WashU is not an extraordinary time commitment, but if they're already struggling to accomplish everything on their plate in the fall semester, it may not be time to also join the Frisbee golf team. That said, I have also witnessed firsthand a number of instances where someone who was struggling academically came into our chapter and was able to benefit from our collective hard work and drive to improve their studies. So your child, each one is different, and you just want to make sure that they become involved with a group that complements them well.
Thank you, Matt. And yes, Matt is absolutely correct. 18 to 22-year-olds at this point, the influence comes within their peers. And so it's really making sure that they have a community and an ecosystem to support them. And as they're in their academics, as they're engaging with their community, really thinking about what that time commitment is to go through the educational process, which typically lasts around 6 to 8 weeks. And that's where folks will learn about the community themselves, the chapter, what is expected, building that community. And it's also a really great support mechanism as it relates to studying together and really growing together as new members to that experience and beyond. So the following here are requirements from the university. Each of our chapters may have different minimum requirements. So just because we may have a 2.5 grade point GPA average to come into the place, our chapters may have different expectations. As you can see, I did not move a whole lot in my office, so my light just went out here. So I just want to make sure that as you're talking through whether they're going to go through a recruitment or an intake is to learn about what those expectations are for the respective chapters that they are interested in. And as Matt mentioned, something to note is that we require 12 credits. So we have, as Matt mentioned, deferred recruitment in order to support our students' academic experience. The previous institution that I worked with had the same model. I very much support this because we want them to get acclimated, we want them to get connected, and we want them to understand how this experience is going to shape them as an individual, as a leader, as a community member. In addition to academic, we also look at behavior of our potential new members. With this being that lifetime commitment, we want to ensure that our new members are congruent with their own values through the behavior that they choose to demonstrate. And so really it's about if they have that time available, because there is time, but just as we know in talking with our students, we make time for what we really want to be a part of. And so, it's really thinking through that a little bit more. And then additional steps, some folks may have additional processes depending on which chapter that is. So for example, with Shantae, we work pretty closely in terms of some of the additional steps that their national organizations, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, have to support those individuals that are interested in joining that particular group. So we do have a great support system with our chapter and our national or international community to be able to do so. And finally, before we open it up, because I see we have 20 more minutes of some airtime, so we'll certainly have some availability to create some comments, questions, and additional. As I mentioned before, in response to the pandemic and the reform work that our chapters are still in the process of developing with recruitment intake, there are some things we don't know, but I'm going to tell you what we do know. So one, recruitment and intake will not occur until after spring semester starts. So we know that for sure. If there is a registration fee, we see this being reduced on the campus, the local chapter side of that. And we know that it will probably be more likely than not an experience that will be virtual because of uncertain times. We want to make sure that we have a safe and a positive experience. And so I'm going to bring to the conversation Rachel, Matt too, and Rebecca, because Rebecca is a recent graduate. But I wanted to see if there was anything else that either or all of you would like to highlight regarding recruitment or intake that would be helpful for our parents and families members to know about, whether it's this upcoming year or experiences that you've had with them. So we'll start with Rachel, we'll go to Matt too, and we'll go to Rebecca next.
Yeah, so since I am currently a leader in WPA, which is the Women's Panhellenic Association, so that's kind of the sorority side of things, I have been working really hard with a lot of the other leaders, with Beth, with Hannah, and some of the other staff within Campus Life to update and quite frankly change recruitment so that we can make it as safe as possible in terms of COVID situations, but also just in light of what happened this summer to really reform the process and make it as equitable and fair and something that we're as proud as we can possibly be of. And that's been really rewarding work to do so far. And I know that not just myself, but all the other student leaders are really devoted to making sure that that continues and through the end of my term, certainly, and then far past that. So I really encourage you to just think about it, talk with your students about it. It's a great opportunity in a lot of senses, and I really have valued my experience. And yeah, I'm really excited to hopefully get to know a lot of what will be PNMs in a couple of months.
Speaking to the IFC side of recruitment, I think if I could give one piece of advice to potential new members who might be coming out in the spring, it would be to see as many chapters as possible. Like Beth touched upon, every chapter has a different set of values, a different feel, different priorities. And I think that really finding your fit within this community necessitates seeing as many chapters as possible. We differ from the WPA in our recruitment practice as we allow PNMs to select which chapters they would like to rush. And so your son might not see every chapter, but getting exposure to as many as possible before making a decision will definitely benefit you in the long run.
So I have a few things to add. On behalf of MPHC, I first want to say that not all chapters or not all organizations are currently having intake processes. I know for my organization, we are currently postponing all intake processes until further notice. So that is something to keep note of. If you were interested in joining whether a sorority or fraternity within the MPHC, please do your research on whether or not they are still having intake processes. I know Alpha Omega just had a process, so they are an option, but as of now, Alpha Kappa Alpha is not having any intake processes. But my biggest thing is if your son or daughter is interested in joining a National Panhellenic Council, we kind of practice the word discretion. And so it's very important that if you are interested in one of these organizations to first do your independent research on your own, going into the websites, looking at the sorority or fraternity's values, what they hold true to themselves, looking at leaders on your campus to see if they are in said organizations, and then going to them to ask questions. But you also want to make sure that you're very discreet. Part of National Panhellenic Council culture is not being so open about your choices because we want it to kind of be like a surprise, for lack of better words. We want people to see you come into this organization and not just, run around on campus saying, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this. It's kind of something that we want you to make your own personal informed decision without like the social pressures of your friends or family members saying, which sororities have deactivated? That is a great question. As of now, I just know Alpha Kappa Alpha. I know Delta Sigma Theta is still open. I believe Sigma Gamma Rho might still be open. They just had an intake process last spring. Zeta Phi Beta, I am not sure. And in terms of fraternities, I'm sure Alpha Phi Alpha just had an intake process, or they just finished their intake process. Omicron Sigma, which is Omega Psi Phi, just had one. And that is all I know as of now. As you can see, I am out of the loop as of this point. But it's just very, very important that your son or daughter exercise discretion, make informed decisions about who they want to ask questions about. If they want to go to a graduate advisor, if they want to go to Beth or Hannah with questions, we highly encourage that because we just want to make sure that their decisions are sacred to them and them only.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And Some other things to mention, Rebecca alluded to this, so thank you so much, is that the university, it works with those individuals that are interested in going through the intake process. So we do serve as a sounding person to help guide folks that are interested in going through the intake process. So thank you for that. A couple clarifying questions. I think, Diane, you might be asking about some of the deactivation or conversations around deactivation as a whole, versus maybe some of the conversations we were having earlier about who's eligible for intake or doing recruitment. So I think that is the question. So Diane, I'll go ahead and answer you. At this point, Pi Beta Phi fraternity is the only chapter that has relinquished their charter. And the students here on this campus have determined that that was the best direction. So worked with their national and the university to be able to do that. At this point, that is the only chapter that has relinquished their charter, meaning that they are not here. All other chapters here on campus, the total of the 25 you saw earlier in a slide, they are still operating. There are folks, so if you look at the most recent news in student life, there are two others that are having conversations here at a local level on whether or not they would like to relinquish their charter. And they're working directly with their national and international offices as well as the university. As a university, our point is that we want to support our students. We want to support, right, the history that our students made that option and interest to having sorority and fraternity life here on campus. We want to continue those that want to continue to do the work and to do the reform work. And we want to equally support those that find this community not a part of their co-curricular experience. And so we've been working with all of our students in order to make that decision on whether or not they want to continue. We don't have any other information to give of any other charters being relinquished. So at this point, we are moving forward with the chapters that we talked about earlier. The other question was about primary recruitment. Although back in my day, it was a formal versus informal, but we call it primary recruitment. And Rachel and Matt too, and Rebecca alluded to the fact that one, with the pandemic, a lot of our chapters are going into a virtual space. So we're really constructing that out a little bit more. When it comes to our women's Panhellenic, they're in literally real time exploring how we can make our experience more diverse, equitable, and more inclusive. And so that is taking a little bit more time. So at this point, the information I shared with you earlier is what we have. We will be releasing out information probably towards the end of November, beginning of December, with some general information about recruitment and intake for the spring. So our incoming, our students will have that information. In addition to, we'll be sharing out with the First Year Center newsletter some general information for you all as parents and family once we're able to get that. So again, that's probably gonna be around the end of November, beginning of December, that we will give you all of that information and share that out with your respective parents. Great question. Can you define recruitment and intake? What is the difference? This is really great. I'm going to bring back Shantae or Rebecca. You can also take this one so you guys can pick, or you both can talk about it. Recruitment and intake is the essential part of a student coming into the experience. But that experience is a little bit unique. And Rebecca alluded to some of the processes in terms of our NPHC organizations and intake about some of the privacy reflective processes. So I'm going to defer to Shantae and Rebecca to talk about a little bit more of a robust definition of intake. And then I will be happy to talk a little bit more about the recruitment and the definition, but they're very complementary towards the with each other, but they mean a little bit different.
Shantae, would you like to go, or would you like me to?
Rebecca, go ahead. I'll let you go.
All right. So essentially, recruitment for NPHC, what recruitment means for us is the process of interest, we call them interest, coming to different events to see what our organization is about. So for NPHC, we have a Greek one-on-one event. If you're a potential recruit or a potential interest, you would come to said meeting, get the information, and then from there you can determine if you want to go to, say, Alpha Omega if they're having a virtual event, if you want to attend their event to get more information. If Beta Delta, which is the Citywide Chapter for Alpha Kappa Alpha, if they're having a virtual event, you can choose to go to that event as well. But that is also where discretion comes in, because while we encourage you to go to different events to see what each organization, oh, look at Jalen, while, just kind of threw me off, sorry. So while we encourage you to go to different events to see what other organizations are about, it's also important to maintain discretion. So if you're planning to go to multiple sororities events, that's something that as an individual, you should make that decision. You shouldn't be telling your roommates or your other friends, I'm going to go to all 4 sororities events and then pick one. Like, that's not really the mentality that you want to share with everyone. If that's something that you want to do for yourself, by all means, do your research. So the recruitment process is that doing your research, going to events, asking questions and things like that. The intake process is once you have determined that you want to become a member, you have done your application, you have gone through our RUST process, you have paid your fees. Now you are going through the process to become a member of our organization. That is when you, I can't allude much to it, but that's when you go through our national organization's protocols to become a said member. And once you go through that process, you become a full-fledged member with responsibilities and rights, as long as you are active, paying your dues, things like that. So that's a little bit of the difference. Recruitment is kind of more in front of your face. Intake is way behind the scenes. That's only for current members and people trying to become members.
Rebecca, you did such a great job, and I apologize. My mouse is right on the arrow and I accidentally clicked it, but thank you so much for that really great answer. Some of the misconceptions is that each of our umbrella groups that you just saw earlier, Women's Panhellenic, Interfraternity Council, National Panhellenic Council, and our NALFO group, that there's uniqueness to all of our different councils. Terminology is unique to those particular councils. And so that is something that we respect here on the campus, and that we are encouraging folks to really think about as they're coming in, that there are words and meaning behind them. And so we really want to be respectful of that. So thank you, Rebecca. You did such a great job. I don't even have to answer anything else on that one. I do have a couple of questions here in the pipeline that I want to answer here shortly. One is there programming happening here in Sorority and Fraternity Life at this point? The answer is yes. And it is really focused on the internal part of that community. We are looking at external opportunities, and that is going to be in the sooner space, but our Sorority and Fraternity Life community is currently working on constructing an experience for incoming students to be here, to become educated. So that is what we are doing while folks are not participating in recruitment intake right now. We're really focusing on internally to create a structure externally for our students. Other questions that I had here that I wanted to try to clarify as well. Matt, thank you so much for what you just said about Sorority and Fraternity Life continuing. I echo that. As students are interested in this experience, we're going to support them in that experience. And the 15%, the 750 current members are who you just talked to today, with Rebecca and Matt too, and Rachel, really dedicated to the reform work and really creating an experience. Is it going to look different? Yes. And that goes into like the 10 years, or my husband and I are 7 years different. It looked different for him than it did for me, but it doesn't mean that it's not a unique experience, that at the end of the day, that value congruence, that positive experience that's going to still be there. It's just going to look a little bit different. So hopefully I've been able to answer that question. There are fees associated with some of these experiences. And so being a part of this lifetime commitment, so that was one of the questions. There are dues, whether that is a national due or a local due. And so when they are going through the education part of this experience, and again, we should have more information at the end of November, beginning of December, you're going to hear that information and your students are going to hear that information. So there's no surprises in terms of what that cost is. And that cost is really geared towards those experiences that are happening within the community of traditions that Matt too talked about, and also making sure that the resources that Shantae talked about with our national organization is also available. So those advisors we talked about, the education, the trainings, that is all connected. And so each chapter has a different experience altogether. We do have 4 minutes left. And so I want to make sure I've answered most of your questions. Oh, go ahead, Hannah. Did I miss one? I knew I would always miss one.
We do have one question about how many members are currently living in our IFC chapter facilities. I know that the number has been significantly reduced, as it has been everywhere due to COVID accommodations, but certainly just wanted to make sure we hit on that if we have that information.
We do-ish, so Hannah is correct, and I'm trying to pull it up here pretty quickly, but our occupancy, so we are very intentional, as residential life is also intentional about pandemic and the situation that we are currently in, to have a reduced bed count. And so some of our community members have opted into continuing to be a part of their living learning community. And so some of our chapter facilities are at 50% capacity, which others are at about 20% capacity. So it really varies between one chapter to the next. Some may have 13 folks that are participating and being a part of that, where others may have 10 folks in the space. And so I actually just went through the walkthroughs today. So our university supports our chapter facilities and our house core presidents with going and engaging in the community to make sure that that community is holding the standards of what we expect them to have. And I can actually tell you in real time, about 2 hours ago, it was a very nice community, and the members are really thinking about it. Each chapter facility has a house manager who are trained within our residential life community and within campus life to ensure that they have that support system so we can build that community within. And so again, it just really varies between each chapter, what that capacity looks like for our suites. So those chapters that have a suite style, we have offline those suites this semester because of the location of where they're at. And so we want to, again, ensure that safety. Coming in December, we'll be reevaluating that suite space, and that suite space is really a place for members to come and collaboratively come into a common space. They do not have living spaces there in the suites, but they do have a community space. I'm hoping in the weeks, months ahead that we'll be able to give you some visuals. Unfortunately, of course, where we're at, we weren't able to do that, but that is one of the goals that we have as well. I also wanted to share with you, as Hannah's pulling up any other questions. Oh, thank you so much. Other questions, but our Dean of Students, Kawana, is here. So I want to say thank you so much for her to come in. But the reduced density is by 50%, and that's done through residential life. So thank you so much, Kawana, for that information. There are additional sessions that are available that you can continue this conversation and learn more about your students' community and learn more about how we're building community. It looks a little different, but it's still happening. We have Campus Life session at Saturday at 5 p.m. It's really great. It's led by our executive director, Leslie Houston. She's gonna have some information about sorority and fraternity life, but it's gonna be beyond that as well. We also have an amazing session. If you're wondering, how are we doing virtual programming? That would probably be the first question I would have. Check out our Paradise session. Danny Kim, who's the Associate Director for Campus Life, has been doing amazing work through the virtual setting and some of the in-person experiences that we have. And so Paradise is a central way for students to network with each other, to play bingo, to play Among Us. So I don't know if you all know what that is, but I am still learning about it. It sounds like a really great experience. I was just talking to a first year about his interest in Among Us. So it's a lot of different ways that we could get engaged virtually. There's lots of great imagination here. So I would encourage you to go to that just to see what that experience would look like. And then certainly we might not have been able to get to all of the questions since it is 5 o'clock and this is our time, but you can certainly reach out to myself. This is my email. If you have made a connection with one of our amazing community partners that you were just hearing about, feel free to reach out to them as well. So thank you so much for your time, your experiences. We are so thankful and appreciative for you all to be partners in our conversation as it relates to sorority and fraternity life. And we want to wish you the best of your weekend. So thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll talk soon.